Welcome to Very Interesting. I'm your host, Barry 𝐓𝐻𝐃𝐃, and you won't want to miss tonight's show with Mary White Ross. We're going to give you a story of Mary's life and times growing up in Missouri and her move to Chicago, Illinois, and being part of the Mayor Daley machine. And also tonight, it's a new segment with Dr. Frank Nickell and former State Representative Jerry Ford. They just completed a book about General Seth McKee from right here in Cape Girardeau. I believe it's a true story of an American hero and a true story of the American dream, so you won't want to miss that. I'm really excited today to have the guests that we have. They're icons to me, but I want to welcome former State Representative Jerry Ford, Jerry Ford Orchestra, and brother-in-law to my good friend Louis Watkins.
There you go.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you.
And Dr. Frank Nickell, former Southeast Missouri State University professor, and you have many, many other accolades we're going to get into later, but welcome to Very Interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So, Jerry and Dr. Nickell have written a new book. It's about a very, very famous person. It should be to all of us here in the state of Missouri, but it's General Seth McKee. They've just written a book about him, and we're going to get the details of that book here on this show today. Really excited about it. I'm kind of a semi-pro historian myself, and this is a great topic. I don't know how you chose it, but we're going to get into that also. But Jerry, let's start the show off with, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, born and raised in Cape, that's as far as I've gotten. Started playing trumpet when I was in the 5th grade, and I've been playing it ever since. And my big band plays in 5 states. I, for many years, worked at the family funeral home, Ford and Sons, there in Cape, and then had several businesses, and then was elected to the Board of Education, and then to the legislature for 2 terms. And I write books and play music these days.
Dr. Nickell, how about your past history? Y'all both given retirement a bad name, but what have you done in the past and what are you doing currently?
Well, I was a high school student impressed by a history teacher I had, and so I sort of set the goal. I wanted to be a history teacher. I went to Eastern Illinois University as a student, then married, and we moved to New Mexico. I lived in Albuquerque, and I attended the University of New Mexico, where I received a PhD in American history. I was looking to go to Idaho, but I saw a notice of a job in a town in Missouri I had never heard of, Cape Girardeau. And so I moved there for a 1-year appointment with the intention of going on to Idaho. The 1 year turned into 52. So I'm still there. I live in Cape Girardeau. I taught at the university for 43 years. I retired and then went to work for the State Historical Society. And now I work for the Kellerman Foundation in downtown Cape Girardeau, right by the clock, in the center of Cape Girardeau, by the river. And I like that a lot. I'm still interested in history. And I discovered Jerry Ford, and he and I have some common interests, one being the history of the region and the history of Southeast Missouri. I think still underpublished and undertold. One of the things we wanted to do was publish a book about one of the most famous people from Cape Girardeau, one of the most famous people from Missouri, who has no book about him. A 4-star general without any publications about his past. And so we have worked for several months now to take care of that, and I think we have completed this. We'll find out how good it is when it shows up. It's on order, it's at the print shop right now, So we hope to have it within just a few weeks.
Well, let's get into why we're here. General Seth Jefferson McKee, probably the most famous military person ever to be or live in the state of Missouri. Let's first get into his family a little bit, Jerry. You talked about his sons already, and he died at age 100 in 2016.
That's right, and at that time, he was the longest living, highest ranking serviceman in history. D-Day. He was flying P-38s up and down the beaches, protecting and supporting the troops who were making the landings at Normandy. And it's an amazing story. He was MacArthur 10 years after MacArthur left Japan. When he retired, he was the head of NORAD in the mountains out in Colorado. And he had 3 sons, all 3 military pilots. His oldest, Jeff, was a Top Gun in Vietnam, had the Distinguished Flying Cross, and many others. Then Bill, who also was a pilot and has various awards. After he left the military, he went back to school 4 years to get a divinity degree. And I was out there visiting him on some research several different times in Phoenix. So I went to one of his meetings that he gave to talk about those kinds of things. And at the end I said, you know, he's Lutheran, and this was at a Lutheran church. I said, I'm sure I'm glad I'm a Methodist. You know, and then the youngest, Tom, very unique, was also a pilot in the service. And he actually ended up as one of the founding members of the Air Force Memorial in Washington, D.C. One of the founding members, helped design it, helped raise the money, and it sits on a high hill right there by Arlington National Cemetery.
So I've got a follow-up question for Dr. Nickell. Are all of his kids still alive, and was they an integral part of your research? I know you said his wife is age 96 and she's still alive to this day.
Sharp as a tack still.
So did the family, was that a good resource for you, or did y'all have a lot of contact? Did y'all meet the general before he passed away?
Oh, yes.
On many occasions, actually, over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we both knew him well and knew his wife well, and have grown to know his sons. So yes, we have a close connection to them. In 1971, Mark Scully was president of Southeast Missouri University, and he was getting ready to retire. And he retired in 1975. And there was talk about who's going to follow Mark Scully, because he'd been president of Southeast for 19 years. And he ran it with a very firm hand. No one ever doubted who was the president of Southeast. And so we all talked about who's going to succeed Mark Scully. And the name of Seth McKee emerged. He was a 4-star general who retired in 1973. And I was a faculty member in history at the time, and like a lot of faculty members, we said, oh my gosh, Mark Scully was strong enough, he was a very authoritarian president. We don't want a general, for goodness gracious, we don't want that. So I was opposed to Seth McKee becoming president of Southeast Missouri State University. And at that time, a lot of generals did become presidents of universities, Dwight Eisenhower as an example. And so
Now, did he want the job?
he didn't really want the job, but he came here and gave the commencement speech in 1971. And he retired.
That was the year after his son Tom had graduated.
Yes, and Tom graduated from SEMO.
Okay.
And so in 73, Seth retired from NORAD, but he had other interests, and he did not want to be a university president, a very wise man. And as a result of that, I was interested because I had interviewed Mark Scully. I have about 50 hours of interviews with Mark Scully about his presidency. I interviewed Robert Lee Stamper after he left the presidency. So I thought, well, I need to see if Seth McKee, with the end of his career in the military, would be willing to be interviewed. And he agreed to do it. And so I set up, I think it was late 70s somewhere, I did an interview with General Seth McKee, shortly after he left the military. And so I was always aware of him, knew about him, and knew that he was an unknown character in southeast Missouri. People, when I mentioned him, no one had ever heard of him.
Because once he left 3 years at SEMO to go be a wrestler at the University of Oklahoma, he never came back to Cape. Now, he came back to visit, but basically, he was gone.
He was. And so I said, we need to do something about this. And so later on, and I don't remember what year it was now, I did the interview with him shortly after he retired. And then somewhere in the 90s, I found out he was coming back to Cape Girardeau to meet with his family. He had a brother who lived in Cape Girardeau, and I knew his brother. So I arranged to have another interview with him. And then, I guess it was in 2000 and something, I don't recall what year it was, we interviewed him for a third time. And I flew out to Phoenix and did an interview with him. Very enlightening, and I said, you know, we have a gentleman here who is nationally significant, internationally significant, and there's no knowledge of him in this region, so we need to do something about that. And then, lo and behold, I met Jerry Ford just by accident, and
We've known each other forever.
for a long time.
You know.
And I didn't know of his interests, he didn't know of mine, and so we got together and decided, here's a 4-star general, internationally known, there is nothing published about him, and he's from Cape Girardeau, so we need to do something on that. And so
I was out there and interviewed, I didn't really interview him, Seth came for a lunch one day in Phoenix, downtown Phoenix. I thought it'd be a real informal, hour or a little over, and we sat there for 4 hours. He fought 3 wars, talked about the 7 presidents that he served under, the good, the bad, the ugly, and me without a tape recorder. So when I got back, I ran into Frank on the street. Frank, I've just been out to Phoenix and had 4 of the greatest historic hours of my life with Seth McKee. And Frank says, I don't think anybody has ever written a book about him. I said, well, then let's do it.
So was he aware that you were writing a book about him?
oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and I
We
talked
talked.
to him, we went out and talked to him, interviewed him, used a lot of the information on Frank's videos, talked to the sons, talked to Sally a lot. She was the Florida citrus queen in high school, and they got married the day after she graduated from high school. She went to New York representing Florida and passing out oranges and blah, blah, blah. And then when the first day he met her, he was a young pilot down there in Florida, and it was a big deal where a lot of the local gals came to meet the flyman.
And he got the prize.
And he said, the first time I saw her, it was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, and I knew that she was going to be my wife.
Well, I hope she gets to watch this interview because sounds like she was a big part of his entire life. I mean, he lived a long life.
The whole works, and they still are. They're very, very close knit. When I send something out there on a computer, you have to send it to all 4.
Well, this guy's a true Missouri hero and a true American hero, so I'm really glad y'all wrote the book.
Whitewater and Gardenville.
Now, he was born in McGee, Arkansas, I was reading, but he graduated from Cape High School and went to
Right.
Southeast Missouri Teachers College, correct?
He didn't graduate from there. He spent 3 years there
Okay.
and then went to Oklahoma. But he was very remarkable, still up to his dying day, was smart, sharp, and Sally still is.
Well, let's get into his military career. Give us some specifics about his military career. We've talked about his early life, born in Arkansas, raised in Cape, Southeast Missouri teacher.
1935 and 38, all the way through till 73. And I want to digress just a second. I would tell him, Frank, write that dadgum book. You know, people want to know about you. Start writing it. Talk about the 7 presidents, the good and the bad. I mean, what are they going to do to you? You know, you're 95 years old at that time, you know. And so he started writing. So a lot of the book talks about his young years here in Missouri, and then as he got older in the service. But
So he was documenting this himself, or Dr.
Yes.
Nickell was? Okay.
he was, and then Dr. Nickell was, and then I was, and other people were. But a lot of it is actual words talking about his younger days. But he flew every plane that we had in those days. He worked his way up all the way through the years.
Tell us a little bit more
Okay.
about his military career.
8,000 hours from 38 to 73, 130 different planes. He was the first to drop a bomb from a P-38, the first to fire a 75 millimeter cannon and other rocket bombs from aircraft. He was commander, of course, over in the Far East of Vietnam in the Pueblo incident. He participated in the development of the United States Air Force from the Army Air Corps all the way up through modern day. Served under 6 presidents, received international awards throughout the world.
So he wanted to be a medical doctor, but he decided when he met a young man who was a pilot, and he saw him in his boots and his uniform, his image was that he could be a pilot. And so in 1935, he joined the National Guard and was flying in open air fuselage planes. And so he saw the Air Force change from those open air airplanes to jet planes. He saw the whole transformation of the Air
And
Force.
flew them, all of them.
And in one lifetime, he was able to see that. And he recognized that as transformational for him, transformational for the nation. And he was dedicated to making the U.S. Air Force the best Air Force in the world. And he, I think, fulfilled that.
He had a front row seat to the history of the military.
He absolutely
It
did.
evolved with him.
Right.
So what's the official name of the book?
Seth.
Seth, okay.
With 4 gold stars.
Short and sweet, I like that.
Seth, 4 stars.
Well, guys, it's truly been an honor and privilege having you today. And we're going to end it with that. You two guys are icons to me, so thank you for coming. Glad sharing the stage with you. Glad to be a small part of helping you kind of get the book out there. Hope everybody reads it. And the topic is, the name of the book is Seth. It's about General Seth Jefferson McKee. It's a true story of the American dream. He's a true Missouri hero. He's an American hero. So, Jerry, Dr. Nickell, hope everybody reads the book. Seth. I would like to welcome Mary White Ross to Very Interesting today. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to have her here today. She's one of the most interesting women I've come to know, and she's got a lot of stories to tell about her life and maybe even her legacy, but you're still with us, so we won't talk about your legacy, okay?
Thank you.
Mary, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. So tell us where you were born and raised.
I was born in Coldwater, Mississippi. I think it's on the outskirts of Memphis, Tennessee. My parents moved to the state of Missouri.
God's country.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your family.
My dad and my mother had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls.
You were the baby.
I am the baby.
You always got baby by your brothers.
I did.
So you were raised around East Prairie then? Is that, or Sikeston?
Well, East Prairie, down in the country at Wolf Island area.
Okay.
We lived in the rural area out there in the country.
What was it like growing up there as a young black woman during the desegregation period?
We didn't realize how difficult it was. It was just, we went to school at Anniston High School for 2 years I did. I went 1 year and graduated from East Prairie High. And as children, young kids in high school, we didn't suffer a bunch of protesting and all that. The kids got along well.
So you were integrated into East Prairie when you were a Senior
I
in high
was a
school?
senior.
Did Anniston shut down then and become East Prairie?
No, Anniston, they found out that the black children did not belong in the Anniston school district. They found out that we should have been going to East Prairie the whole time.
Oh, okay.
So then that's at the very senior year, after my dad had bought my graduating high school ring from Anniston, I graduated from East Prairie.
So you didn't see a lot of the bad stuff as far as segregating blacks into white schools then when you were growing up?
No, we did not.
So it was a good experience for you at East Prairie.
I think it was. Yes, it was.
What year did you graduate from East Prairie?
1965.
1965. I was -4 that year. So after you graduated from high school, what did you decide you wanted to do with your life?
I didn't make any plans. And at the very last minute, I decided I wanted to go to college. But the thing of it was, I had not taken college classes that would have prepared me to go. But that still did not deter me. But I thought, well, I want to go to college. So then after trying to get into SEMO, which at that time, well, up there in Cape Girardeau, I did not get in there, and I applied for Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, and I was accepted.
So you started your college career at Lincoln University?
I sure did.
Is that an all-black college?
It's an all-historical black college.
So coming from the boondocks of East Prairie to the city of Jefferson City, was that a culture shock for you?
It was a culture shock. It really was. Quite naturally, I didn't have transportation because I was a freshman. Didn't even have my driver's license, as far as that concerned. But I only was able to go home during the Christmas break because that was the longest break we would have. Other than that, I just stayed there on campus.
So from around 1966 to 1968, 69, you were actually in Jefferson City.
I was.
Was that a good time for you?
It was really good.
So you loved the college atmosphere and the
Yes,
college
I did.
life?
Lived in the dormitory, worked my way through in the cafeteria, in the dormitory rooms as a RA or whatever they call it. But anyway, I worked my way through college.
And what degree were you pursuing at that time?
Business administration.
Then you met this young man, and that messed your whole college career up at the
sure
time,
did.
right?
It sure did. I dropped out, then got married.
So you got married in around 1968, 69?
Yeah, 68, 69.
And you met this young man. His name was?
Eugene.
Eugene swept you off your feet and took you to Chicago.
Yes.
So when you got to Chicago, your first job was a Montgomery Ward catalog person,
I
right?
really was. Whenever you'd fill out your order, I processed that. I put it in the computer, which at that time, it was really antique-ish when you think about it. It was very
Primitive.
Yeah.
Me and my brothers loved that Montgomery Ward catalog, though. We'd be circling every toy in there for Christmas.
I loved it also.
So you actually did the ordering, fulfilled orders for Montgomery Ward when somebody ordered from the catalog?
Yes, whenever the order came in through the mail, I put it in the computer so that it could be shipped out, or the warehouse could ship
Wait
it
a
out.
minute, there's computers then?
Well, it wasn't really a computer. It was something other that we used in order to get that person's order processed from the paper to the company's warehouse.
So after you left Montgomery Ward, you were there for how long?
Probably about a good 2 years.
So after that, you went to work for AT&T?
I did.
What did you do at AT&T?
I was the AT&T in the accounting department was divided into regions, and I had 5 or 6 states which we were working for. And I suppose it's been such a long time ago, I think we were processing, maybe the bills or something. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But I do know we had different regions in which, within those regions, there were states in which we were accountable to.
You was kind of a regional accounting person then?
Yes.
Okay. Then after that, this is the most interesting job I think you've ever had until you got the one you're doing now. Since you're still there, I'll say it's the most interesting, okay?
Yes,
But you went to work for Mayor Richard Daley in Chicago.
I sure did.
And the way you describe this job to me, it sounds illegal in today's political climate. So I'll let you explain to the audience what you did for Mayor Richard Daley.
It was a fun time. I mean, the closeness that we had with the different workers was just outstanding. What I did for Mayor Daley was I worked in his office, answered the phone, took in complaints and all that. Plus, under 𝐓𝐎𝐍𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓, which was my first boss, under Mayor Daley, I was precinct captain.
Now, 𝐓𝐿𝐍𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓 would be like an alderman or a ward boss, right?
Yes, he was a ward boss. And I was a precinct captain under 𝐓𝐿𝐍𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓. Alex reported to the mayor, Richard Daley.
So you was pretty much right under the mayor then. You're just 2 steps away.
Yes, I was.
You were kind of the boss in your ward.
Yes, I was.
Then you sold these coupons or tickets to people in your ward, right?
Yes. It was an annual fundraising venture that everyone who had a job within the city of Chicago had to participate. If you had a high-paying job that was probably, you were placed in there because of your affiliation with Mayor Daley, you received X amount of tickets, and those tickets were not returned to you. You either bought them or you sold them, one way or the other.
They didn't want you to bring them back.
No.
They want you to be sold out.
Yes.
So what did you get for your ticket or your coupon?
Well, this annual event was a big deal. You got a chance to dress up. If you had a mink coat, you could wear it. And you just dressed up. With that ticket purchase, you could, which we did, we received a free meal, go back as many times as you like. All the drinks was free. There was usually entertainment there as well. It was just a fun time.
So this is the way the political machines were ran in big cities, right?
Yes.
So if you didn't buy a ticket, your stoplight or your stop sign probably didn't get repaired very fast,
It didn't
right?
get repaired very fast. And then if you didn't sell your tickets, you didn't keep that job very long either.
So it's a patronage job.
It really was.
It was a legal patronage job, but it sounds like if you wasn't in the in crowd and buying the tickets, you probably didn't get access or services to the politicians to get the job done.
Correct.
So you were really selling excess with these coupons and tickets,
Yes. Yes, we
which
were.
is a lot the way politics is done today. You just really can't sell anything now. You're not selling a service.
No.
It's more in donations to the campaign.
Uh-huh.
So, that's a historical thing you were involved in. I mean, everybody knows about the big daily political machine. It was a good job for you.
Yes, it was.
I think it gave you a lot of respect. You told me you were well respected in your ward.
Yes,
I mean, you were the go-to person when there was a problem.
I really was.
So you were the first gatepost to somebody having a problem with their water, sewage, stop sign. Then you'd tell 𝐓𝐿𝐍𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓, then he'd go to the mayor's office and get things done.
Get things done.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
seems like an interesting job.
It really was.
You were the boss.
I don't know.
So you were in Chicago for several years, and you told me that you did have a good high-paying job for the times you were living in,
Uh-huh.
but it was very expensive to live in Chicago because everything wasn't close to your house.
No, it was not.
You had to dress up every day, you had to eat out every day. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, specifically when I worked for AT&T, I lived on the south side of Chicago. AT&T is down in the Loop, downtown area. So you rode the L train in to work. You paid for that every day. Well, you could have the ability to bring your lunch, but I chose to eat at the different restaurants. I'd imagine I have eaten in every restaurant downtown Chicago. I really have. And when you look back at it and you start adding up that's very expensive. In a week's time, very expensive.
So you told me your child care, your food expense, and your travel expense. You had to take the train, you said?
Yes,
or- So really your whole paycheck was going towards doing your job, right?
doing my job and not seeing very much of a profit.
So after you did the Mayor Daley job, your husband decided he wanted to move back home, right?
Southeast Missouri, yes.
That was around 1975, I think.
Yes, it was.
And y'all purchased some land and built a grocery store. Was the building already there? Around
It was already there.
It's Pinhook Grocery Store, right?
It really was.
So you moved from one of the biggest cities in the United States back out into the boondocks.
Yes.
So what kind of racial divide did you see in the city urban area versus rural areas? Was there any difference?
There was a big difference, Barry. Having lived in the Southeast Missouri area, but then having gone away and been gone so long, I didn't realize what it was like to be back in a small area again. And when I first got back here, folks was waving at me, and I'm thinking, why are you waving at me? I don't know you. Everybody was laid back. Everybody was laid back. And there was a difference, you know, in the climate. To me, Southeast Missouri was very laid back.
So you started this grocery store, Pinhook Grocery Store, out in the middle of nowhere.
Out.
Which back in those days, there was grocery stores in the country everywhere, right?
Yes.
So was your grocery store successful, and who was your clientele? Was it mainly black, white, farmers? Who was your clientele?
My grocery store was successful to a point, but what we really realized was our location was not centralized like it should have been. And then I also realized that in order for the first 5 years, if you're in any business, you need outside income coming in. Because what we had to do was live off of the monies that we bought merchandise with. I had a markup on different products, so we had to live on that. And it was very, very difficult to do that.
So after you realized that the grocery store wasn't good for you and your husband, what did you decide to do at that point? You closed the grocery store down and did what?
I began to go to the unemployment office and seek other avenues of employment. And in them days, the unemployment office seemed to have a purpose. I don't know really what they do now, but there was a program out there, a pilot program where businesses in the area would pick up a person and train them. So that was my first chance to get started work in a law firm. Weber Gilmore took on me as a new person and began to train me in the law field.
Weber Gilmore from Sikeston, correct?
Yes, yes.
And you started working in his law firm
I don't remember.
1980-ish?
Yeah, sure was.
So that's when you got your feet wet in the legal business.
Yes.
So how long did you work with the Gilmore firm?
Oh, I worked with them about 6 or 7 years. And I had some college credits after having dropped out of Lincoln University, and I wanted to get my Bachelor of Science degree. So then I quit working for Weber and went to school full time at Cape Girardeau.
And Mr. Gilmore kind of wanted you to do that, right?
He wanted me to do that.
He said, Mary, you really need to finish your degree, right?
Right, right.
And you finished your degree in, about around 82, 83?
I know, I believe it was in 86, if I'm not sure, if I'm
1986.
not mistaken.
So you'd be considered a non-traditional student at that
I
point
was
in
very
time, right?
non-traditional.
So was it difficult for you to go back to college at that age?
Not really, because when you're an older person, a non-traditional student, you know the reason that you're in school is to get the information done and get out. You're not interested in partying or any of that. You're just there to study and get out with your degree.
So you received your bachelor's degree around 1986. Then you decided to do what with that?
Well, I went back to Sikeston. Quite nice. I still live in Sikeston. I was commuting from Sikeston to Cape Girardeau. I began working at the housing authority in their area. I think I was I took in the rents and calculated that, did deposits and all that. Worked for them for about 2 or 3 years. Then also worked for the Division of Family Services in Sikeston. I had my bachelor's degree, and I had been on the register for quite some time. And whenever there would be an opening coming up, I never was called. So I wrote a letter to somebody in Jeff City. I don't know where I wrote it to. Tell them that my name is on the register, but I've never been called for an interview. So out of the blue, somebody came to Sikeston and met with me, and evidently had told Scott County, hey, you're going to interview this lady and possibly hire me. And that's what happened.
So you got your chance.
I got my chance.
And they pretty much let you do your 90-day trial, and they got rid of you then, right?
They sure did. They said, okay, yeah, you can force us to hire her, but you cannot force us to keep her. Because I had even asked some of the workers, and I got along very well with the workers. I was a good worker. And I asked some of the folks who were working there, I said, look, after 90 days, what happens? They said, oh, if you are still lacking in something, they extend the 90 days. But that was not true for me.
But instead of getting mad about it, you just moved on, right?
I moved on.
After you get your degree, you've had various jobs, but one of your most interesting jobs you told me was, I think you were the first associate clerk for Sikeston City?
Yes.
Tell us about that job. How'd you get that job?
Well, after the Scott County let me go, I had been serving. I've always volunteered in my community. I had been serving on planning and zoning in the city of Sikeston for years. So I went downtown to City Hall one day, and I talked to the city manager. I said, look, I need a job. He said, Mary, we don't have anything open right now. He said, but I'll keep your name in mind. It was about 3 weeks or 4 weeks or more, and he called me and he said, Mary, I have a deputy court clerk job. Do you want it? I said, yeah. So that was the way I got in the door with the city of Sikeston.
And from then on, you was very involved in Sikeston politics, statewide politics, national politics.
Yes.
So then you moved on and decided to run for office yourself. You decided, I don't know why, but you decided to get involved in the Sikeston school board races, right?
Yes, I really did. For one thing, I believe that the minority should have had representation on the school board. Not that one person can make a difference, but at least you're in the middle of the meeting and you can explain the reason why we need each other's support on a particular issue. And so I wanted to be on the school board for that reason.
And you told me one time that, you know, a lot of people run for school board because they've got an agenda, and that's the wrong reason to run for school board.
That's the wrong reason to run.
They don't need to come in and try to fire the superintendent or get rid of the coach. They need to come in and do what's best for the kids that are going to school there.
That's the most important issue.
And that's the only thing that you took with you when you finally won.
Yes.
You told me you ran 5 or 6 times
I
before
did.
you actually won. So tell us a little bit about winning your first election and getting on the ballot. It takes a lot of courage to put your name on the ballot, for one thing.
It does take a lot of
But
time.
you were a miser, though. You were saving signs each time.
I was recycling before it became popular. I would get donations and get my signs ordered and made up. I finally realized that it was not wise for me to put elect Mary for 2005 or whatever. You just don't put the dates on there. So therefore, if you don't have a date on there, it just says elect Mary White Ross, and then you can use those signs over and over and over again. And that's what I would do. Whenever I would lose the election, I'd get the call and say, Mary, you didn't win the election. I said, okay. I'd get out and accumulate all the signs that I'd put out and save them for the next time.
After you got on the school board, I asked you, do you feel like you made a difference? Do you feel like you made a difference on the Sikeston school board?
I really do believe I did. I got a chance to work with a lot of professional people on the school board, not only just teachers and superintendents and all that, but community people who were there for the same purpose that I was there for. And I still have friendship with the majority of all those folks.
So when you're on the school board, where were you working at when you were on the school board? Were you working for the city of Sikeston at that time?
Yes, I was working for the city of Sikeston when I was on the school board.
Then about what range did you stop doing that job and you went to work where?
I retired from the city of Sikeston in 2013, and I wasn't really going to do anything, but then the opening for Ward 4, which is where I was been the council person, was open. And everybody said, Mary, we need to see if you will run for Ward 4 committee woman. I said, well, you know, hey, get some young person to do it. And they said, look, we want you. And so I did go ahead and run for the city council person for Ward 4.
And you won that election?
Yes, I did.
So are you still on city council today?
No, I told him it was only 3 years. I was only going to give him 3 years. I said, I'm too old and I'm just going to give you 3 years. And that's what I did.
The reason you're here today is you give retirement a bad name. Kim Heckemeyer called me and said, Mary's retiring. I really would like for you to interview her because she has such great stories. So the day of the retirement party they were giving for you, Mary decides not to retire again, right?
Well, see, July 31st, I told everyone in the office, hey, July 31st is my last day. Oh, well, Mary Wise, well, you know, hey, I'm just leaving July 31st. So that weekend, I started looking at my papers and my bills and stuff. I'm thinking, there's no way I want to get out of here right now. So then when I got to the office Monday morning, which was the day we were going to go out to lunch, I said to Boyd, which is one of the partners, who is one of the partners, and I said, Boyd, oh, I don't want to leave. Have y'all found anybody? He said, no, we ain't found nobody yet. I said, I don't want to leave, Boyd. He said, well, all right then. I said, can we cancel the lunch? And he said, oh, no, we're still going to go out and eat.
I don't like to miss a meal either, so
Oh, it
I
was
respect him for that. You're very, very involved in Democratic politics. You have been for a long time.
Yes.
Obviously, your whole career has been touched by politics.
Yes.
You've been involved in statewide politics
Yes.
and local politics in Illinois and Missouri. So how has the political process evolved for the African-American woman over the last 75 years? Because you've had a front row seat to history.
Yes, I have. When I was a teenager and my dad was alive and all that, and he'd go and vote, I didn't see very many women involved in the political arena. If there was, one person would be Miss Helen Karen in Charleston, Missouri. I think she was very active. But so far as down there in the, Eastboro area, Wolf Island area, I didn't see very many women at all. It was mostly men. But I think what we're doing now as minorities, we're reading more about the candidates. What can you offer us? We are doing more to get the vote out. I mean, I'm to the point now where we're going to be making phone bank calls and stuff like that. Trying to see if there's anybody need to be registered, trying to see if anybody needs a ride, trying to see if we need any absentee ballots. All those things are going to be happening.
Well, Mary, how many times have you heard in your life, this is the most important election in your lifetime?
I know it. And then, and you must get out and vote. And then I think about it and I'm thinking, okay, well, we got through this, and if we're not successful, we'll get through it again.
Yes.
But I'm hoping that we will have a change.
Well, Mary, thank you for being here today. You're one of my heroes. I mean, you've left it all on the table for the citizens of Sikeston. Done a great job in service there. I mean, if you look at your career and your highlights, I mean, you've continued to grow your life in business, spiritually, and you're a class act. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Mary White Ross, ladies and gentlemen. She's one of the most interesting women I've ever talked to here on this show, maybe number one. And I want to thank her for being here today, and I hope you'll enjoy this episode. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Good.
Thank
good.
you.
I enjoyed myself.
Hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Very interesting. And I hope you'll join us next week. We'll have Sue Ann Williams from Southeast Hospital, Dexter. We're going to be discussing rural health care. And we'll also preview our new segment of In the Arena. That is co-host Lloyd Smith and former state representative Philip Britt. Look forward to bringing it to you soon. Thank you.